Hey everyone, welcome to the Not a Lonely Coffee Break podcast. We are your hosts. I'm Maddie.
I'm Megan. We're a podcast about coffee and work, but make it queer. And you know what, Maddie? I know our listeners don't hear my bloopers, but you're just going to have to deal with my stumbling today, okay?
No, something has been going around, Megan. And I know that multiple people, including me and you, I don't know, I'm calling it like extreme allergies.
Yeah, that's basically, it took me down. It took me
Because like
down.
it's not really cold season yet, but I'm associating it with things that I feel like when I have a cold.
Yeah, I definitely had to take some sick time this past week. So I am breathing through one nostril. I have my friends here listening with us today. So if I sound a little different, but yeah, no, something is definitely going around. It took me out. And then I really started like, when you get sick and you're like, geez, I need to like get some
Hmm
multivitamins. I need to like eat some fruit, you know,
hmm
give me
I
some
feel
stuff
like
from the ground. I need a cleanse.
Yeah, I feel like whenever I'm sick, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I'm not getting enough vitamins." And so I'm like overloading on like vitamin C, vitamin D, and then once I'm better, I'm like, "Okay, I'm done."
Yeah. Let me go eat this bag of Doritos.
Yeah, who needs vitamins?
Exactly.
I also will sometimes think about cuz like sometimes the doctor will say something like, "Are you taking your vitamins?" And I'm like, "No." I'm wondering if I would do better with vitamins if I was still taking the chewable Flintstone vitamins that I
Right?
would get when I was a kid.
Maybe. I eat the gummies every once in a while, but I often question if it's like, what's the efficacy on these gummies? I want to know because they're a bit too good, in my opinion.
Mhm. I agree. So, today Megan and I thought we would dive into our discussion about various relationships in the workplace. And, Megan, as I was gathering my own thoughts and me researching different
Hmm.
things about this, I also was just kind of reflecting a little bit about our own experience because today we are going to talk about the relationship that we have as employees with our managers. And you and I think, scored the like losing side
What?
to a manager and experiences. And I just found myself thinking, like, my gosh, everything I'm finding is like further just supporting that Megan and I weren't off our rockers and what we were experiencing was like ab abusive relationships
Mm.
in the workplace perpetrated by our manager.
Right. Right. I agree. I mean, you don't think it's actually happening to you. You're just like, oh,
Mhm.
shoot, I need to keep my job, you know?
So one of the things that I kept finding in our research, and we'll go more in depth. So Megan and I are going to be referencing in this episode a lot of information from Gallup. Anyone who's familiar with a lot of workplace statistics or whatever, they know that Gallup is a pretty solid source. They do a variety of reports or whatever. Well, they recently released sort of their state of the workplace report. And so Megan and I thought we would help unpack that a little bit in this episode. But I wanted us to kind of share our thoughts on something, Megan, because I think at least when we worked together, you and I had very different ideas about this notion. Because one thing that's coming up in this Gallup report is manager engagement. Okay. And so one thing that there's other things that we will talk about, but one of the things that comes up is like managers who have like check-ins with their employees. So, like, how often does your manager check in formally or in passing? Or I guess what is your preference in terms of managers checking in with you?
My preference,
Mhm.
I like checking in like at least once a week. I have to do the once a weeker. Get me on a Monday. Let me know expectations. This is where I'm at. Let's rock and roll. You know,
Mhm.
um, I prefer a check in personally, only because what you're doing and what your manager's doing are two different jobs, right? Like
Mhm.
we've got different responsibilities. We're maybe on two different tracks. There's just a lot of stuff going on. And so sometimes if like I feel like if I'm not checking in with them, then I feel lost in the sauce. I'm not gonna lie.
Mhm.
Like I'm just like, oh, well, I hope I'm doing everything correctly because this is what they're gonna get, you know?
Mhm.
I like it. What about you?
So for me, I'm not like against check-ins, but I am against check-ins just for the sake of check-ins.
Mm,
Like
mhm.
I don't like them to be overly long, and I would like to keep it at 1 a week. Like if it's to the point where we're checking in almost every day about the same stuff, I feel more like you're wasting my time, and
Every day seems like a bit
I
much.
won't be able to achieve the things that we've maybe outlined, but I'm very much like, tell me what you need me to do and then let me do it. And if I need your help with something, I'll reach out. But I know that a lot of people do value having those check ins where they're being directly asked, is there
Mhm.
something I can help you with? So yeah, I guess it probably has to do with the manager because like in the setting you and I were in, there was so much confusion that like even when we would have our check-ins, the things that we thought we would be talking about were never the things that we were talking about.
Right? Yeah.
Or things that we thought were priorities because we had previously been told they were priorities. We were now being told, "Oh no, that's not your why aren't you working on this?" And it's like, "Well, cuz you told me that's not a priority."
Right. And I think that because we've both been managers in our past lives, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so I've personally, speaking for myself, I have learned a lot. Like, I wasn't the perfect manager. I don't think anyone can be a perfect manager, but I think it's about the intentionality, right? Of trying to understand how your employees respond, you know?
Mhm.
and what really gets them motivated to complete their work and so that you can keep them engaged, right? So engagement through like how are they speaking with you? How are they like reporting? Are they
Mhm.
communicative? Are they talking to their team members? And that's stuff that starts from the top. Like if your manager isn't creating an environment where we can create these healthy conversations, normal
Mhm.
conversations, or even conflicting conversations,
Mhm.
then it can
Mhm.
go out the bag, and that's a lot of responsibility on a manager too.
Mhm.
But I think
No, I agree. Yeah,
uh-huh.
I definitely agree.
But I think
So
but it takes the intentionality for
mhm.
sure,
Yeah.
and it's like it doesn't just always click sometimes.
Mhm. Listeners, we would love to hear your thoughts on how often you would like your managers to check in with you, um, and what that looks like for you to make it a meaningful check-in. So leave us a comment on socials or on the episode because we would love to hear from you guys. Because obviously, Megan and I share our opinions, but you don't have to agree with us.
You really
No,
don't.
for real, when Megan and I were working together, the only reason why this stands out to me was because I remember one time, Megan, we were sitting in like a team meeting, if you can even call it that, when there's like 5 people, and our dictator at the time, I'm sorry, our manager at the time was basically like asking, like, I don't even say it was asking. They were basically saying like, "What do you need from me?" And you and I both said the complete opposite thing. You were like, "I want you to check in with me and, like, light a fire under
Mhm,
my butt
mhm.
and keep me going, like, check in with me almost daily." And I was like, "I want you to leave me alone and, like, let me do my stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, I don't wanna check in with you every day."
Yeah. No, I completely agree. Honestly, like, looking back, I remember that exact scenario.
And
And
we,
that
like,
was
kinda
we both looked at each other like, "Oh, shit."
we both looked at each other, and I was like, "Do not tell them you wanna meet with them every
I'm
day
sorry.
because
Well,
they'll do it."
as you can see, listeners, Maddie and I have disagreements too. No, at that time, no, by the time we had this conversation with our
Yeah.
manager, it was too far gone.
Yeah,
We were
everything was too far
This
gone.
was like late in the game, like her
Mhm.
trying to connect, right? And
Mhm.
so I think I may have been like just trying to control the situation as much as possible so that I
Mhm.
knew that like I was doing what I was supposed to be doing. And if they weren't, then that's not on me. That was kind of like
Mhm.
my game, right?
Mhm.
But that's not how I work now, for the record. Because I don't. Honestly, my style has definitely changed. But that is
Mhm.
really funny you bring that up because, yeah, that's how chaotic my life was at that time because
Mhm.
I was literally treading water just trying to keep my job at this time, and I was like,
Yeah.
"Literally, whatever you need to do,
Mhm.
just tell me what to do."
Mhm.
And
Well, and
so
I think I was probably experiencing the same thing. I was, yes, trying to survive, but I also was, like, fed up with
yeah.
everything. Like, everything that we were doing, we were, like, butting heads, and then we had this manager who just wasn't sincere and was like, "What can I do?" And I was like, "Stop having us have meetings like this because this isn't getting work done."
Yeah, we were meeting, like, every other day, almost every day for a
I
while
feel
there.
like I feel like we were meeting, like, every day, and if we
Yeah.
weren't meeting, we were getting emails about
Yeah.
or some sort of spreadsheet that was tracking our
My
we
day-to-day
were trying.
actions.
Yeah,
It was a lot.
it was toxic
It
to
was
the
a lot.
extreme. But no, that's just a vivid memory I have because it was one of the few times that you and I did not, I feel like, have kind of like a united front in one of those meetings. Usually we presented sort of the same notion. And this time I was like, no, Megan, I don't want to meet with them every day. And I
Yeah.
think I even said something like, great, meet with Megan every day. Leave me out of it.
You really did. Yeah, you really did. And I was like, "Okay."
Like, if you're meeting with Megan, awesome. Talk about things that you can do with Megan, but
Mhm.
I don't need to have that meeting with you.
Right. No, and I think that also underlines a huge, huge thing is whenever a new person comes to the team, those questions need to be ironed out from the
Mhm.
beginning. Like what is the styles
Mhm.
of your coworkers and your team members? Because we're obviously very different in how we react,
Mhm.
right? To conflict. Uh,
Mhm.
and yeah, we definitely were not set up for success. And that
Oh my
hits
gosh.
the bottom line, right?
It
So,
does.
Maddie, can you give me some
So, yeah,
information on that bottom line?
Gallup reports 70% of a team's engagements, so their overall engagement, is explained by the manager. So that relationship that you have with your manager is going to impact everything. So it's probably one of the more important relationships. So this year they saw manager engagement drop by 27% globally, which they had not seen a drop since COVID. There was only this kind of significant drop during that time when workplaces were literally falling apart and we were all
Mhm.
just trying to survive at that point.
Mhm.
That's pretty astonishing, 70%.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about, like, how much you interact with your manager one-on-one, that number is pretty powerful in the way it stands out. And so, if you're a leader in this situation, are you giving yourself time, right, to have intentional one-on-ones with goals, right?
Mhm, mhm,
If the engagement is just me and you arriving to a room and we talk about nothing for
mhm,
30 minutes. Like, it's not setting the room up for success. And those things do
mhm.
happen. And I think that we need to understand that we're not perfect and to use tools and to know that maybe, especially if you're entering like a business, this isn't a nonprofit business. This is just a business. You're coming here to sell
Yeah.
products, you're in sales, or maybe you're
Mhm.
in, you know, just in a high stress situation, restaurants, whatever. Not a lot of times those places have a good framework to work off on.
No, yeah, but in terms of, I think you're building into this, so I think it really does highlight the impact that engagement can have on everything and, like, setting that group up for success because so last year we saw the employee engagement fall, which cost the world economy. So employee engagement and how honestly satisfied your employees are with their relationships with everyone they're working with, including managers, that's going to impact their level of productivity. And I read that and Megan, I was like, "Oh my gosh, that explains so much," because the more toxic of an environment that you and I were in, our productivity did drop. Like,
It
we just
tanked.
stopped like, I feel like when we kinda started out, we were, fresh with new ideas, we were constantly, like, sharing perspectives and everything, and then the more that we were in that negative engagement space, we just, like, tanked on productivity, and we were just
Mhm.
like, well, I guess I'm done for the day.
Yeah. Yeah, it was wild. And it's disappointing in a way, because you're just I think deep down we're just trying to be successful and get the heck out of there.
Mhm.
And so, yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense for sure. For sure. I am curious, like, because we talk about how work is, we got to create boundaries and stuff, but the people that we spend time with at
Mhm.
work, we ultimately create a bond with these people so that
Mhm.
we can work with them, so that we can create things together. But if you're not connecting with the leader, then you're probably going to be feeling isolated from everybody else,
Mhm.
So it
Mhm.
also like
Mhm.
makes you feel targeted. It could make you feel like, is the problem me? And it's not helpful. And
Uh,
honestly, it spreads.
it so, uh, it's interesting you said that. So only 34% of employees feel like they're thriving in their workplace. 41% report stress, which, okay, who isn't
Yeah.
stressed
Yeah.
out? Work is
I would be
stressful. But
surprised.
like
Yeah.
41% report stress, which means it must be significant that they're reporting it. And then this is the one that I'm like, 1 in 5 people feel lonely at work.
That is really
If that
sad.
applies to you, you found your show.
Yep. Welcome. Welcome.
Welcome to Not a Lonely Coffee Break.
Yeah, I mean, and I am one of those people, I don't like feeling lonely at work. I like to have, I work alone in my work.
Mhm.
I do work in groups sometimes, but I like to have people around me. I like to
Mhm.
like see that, the camaraderie. Like, even if they're coming in and talking nonsense and I'm just doing my work, like I like to have that camaraderie and that relationship
I
built
think it helps
because
break up your days too, like being
yeah.
able to like have those quiet, really productive moments, but then also being able to just take a little break, go have a quick little chit chat with a coworker about something lighthearted and fun.
Well, so let's circle back and, from is there anything that like managers could do to in their check-ins or in their meetings to
Mhm.
like
Mm.
clear the air, or like maybe try
Mhm.
some new tactics, right? If you're a
Mhm.
manager out there or a leader of some sort.
So I think the first thing you have to establish is what does, the Gallup the Gallup research, it kept talking about engagement, engagement, engagement. But I was kind of like, so what are they defining as manager engagement?
Mm.
And so it kind of boils down to a variety of things, but clarity of sort of expectations, which you mentioned earlier, right? Making
Mhm.
sure everyone is aware of goals and everything. So clarity, clear direction, clear expectations, frequent and meaningful communication, which we also said was missing from our situation. This one I think really stands out to me too. Recognition and strengths focus. Like we're not just like giving praise for like random things, but like you're truly acknowledging someone's hard work and the impact that it might have to the overall business. So that way people feel appreciated in their places
Mhm.
of work. Coaching over more like policing, like, tell me what you're doing.
Yeah. More giving advice,
Right.
right?
Instead, approaching it from that coaching angle of saying, like, I hear you saying that you don't feel like this is to the level that you want it to be at. How can we work together to get it to the level you feel comfortable with? Things like that, I think. And I love that. All the best, I guess, leaders or managers I've had, I've always feel like that's something that stands out to me is their ability to be more of a mentor type of manager rather than a you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. Emotional availability, which to me that just means like I'm not just checking in with you about work. I'm also like checking in with you like overall. Like
Mhm.
how is your day going?
Maybe the workload.
Yeah, how are you feeling stressed, overwhelmed? So just making sure that you have more of those personal type of touch points as well, not just the professional ones. Problem solving and then just overall modeling engagement, which I think is huge, right? If you role model the kind of workplace that you want to thrive in terms of positive interaction and stuff, that's going to trickle down into the employees, right? And so that's sort of what I think boils down into what engagement can look like. And I think those are all things that managers can be thinking about too of like, what are things that I can do? How does that look in our workplace? Am I being clear in my expectations?
Right.
Or is there confusion? What kind of feedback am I giving?
It's a lot of pressure. You know, and I think that that's why it's, like, really important that if you are going into, like, a leadership role,
Mhm,
that you do find that that piece is extremely important, you know?
mhm, mhm.
And that if you're not too familiar on how that piece should work, in a workplace, then maybe look into it, you know? It's definitely very much needed. It can definitely make or break a workplace. It'll change the entire personality of your team, and then also
Mhm.
the experience that you're trying to get from your consumers or your customers or the people that
Yeah.
your clients, you know, whoever that
Mhm.
might be, because they can feel the tension. You
Yeah,
know,
they'll feel it.
I've worked in several places like in hospitality where like even though we've got our customer service smile on and we got, you know, our customer service voice on, like they can see the tension.
That it's a fake smile that we're
It's
like,
a fake smile, yeah. Can't catch me now.
yeah.
But it's there, and once it's there, it's so much harder to get rid of it. It's so much
Mhm.
harder to
Mhm.
manage, and ultimately, it leads to turnover, and you're just finding yourself in the same pot over and over and over again. And I really firmly believe that that does come from engagement with your leaders, with your manager,
Mhm.
and what that looks like when you guys are having those check-ins. Um you know, to be honest, I am surprised, I guess, in a way that I shouldn't. I don't know. I am surprised that engagement is high or was high for a little bit. Knowing that we had come out of COVID and this was the stress, I feel
Mhm.
that overall in this nation, the workload has got so bad, right? They're just like, do as much as you can at all times,
Mhm. Mhm.
100% of
Mhm.
the time. So it's
So
just, yeah, I'm surprised that people are
yeah, so
actually still
I think something that's contributing to that though is, and I think this is why the other dip that they know was during COVID when a lot of similar things were happening. So I think one thing to take into consideration is that managers also have managers. And so and we're also now right now seeing a lot of different kinds of businesses across industries go through changes, like transitions in staffing, departments adjusting size, and so
policy.
policies changing, and so I think that we are seeing some of our managers, even if they're really solid managers, they are starting to get overloaded and overburdened with their own stuff, and
Mhm,
so they're if they're experiencing stress and pressure and juggling too many things at one time, that's gonna trickle down into how they lead and how they manage people. And so Gartner, which is another kind of industry research thing, some people might be familiar with Gartner. They actually pulled some managers and talked about burdens. 51% say that they have more responsibilities than they can effectively manage, which resonated with me because Megan, you know this. I mean, at one point, I felt like I was in charge of everything except
mhm,
grants. I was like, what isn't my responsibility? How am I supposed to prioritize all this stuff when everything you're telling me everything is important, but I literally don't have enough time in my day?
mhm,
48% feel like they're at risk of failure because they have too much going on. And so they're like, I'm not being set up for success.
yeah,
And then 54% experience stress and fatigue, which both of those equal burnout.
wow, yeah, that makes sense. That those are more, like, realistic numbers for, to
Mm,
and I think a lot could be done for that, you know?
mhm, mhm,
Hopefully, we'll change one heart today. I think I have some tips and tools for to change our little hearts and minds out there, you know, especially if you don't have these already established or maybe you're trying to look for something different to approach like some of your employees or team members if you're trying to adapt to maybe their work styles. You could run a one-on-one, obviously, focused on priorities or maybe some sort of roadmap. I've used roadmaps in the past where it looks at like more than just a week to week thing, but hey, this is our 30, 60, and 90-day goals. And then you
mhm,
guys kind of work on that. And ultimately, especially for those bigger projects that may require a little bit of time, but then you can also set expectations on like, hey, these are the little goals too in between that we want to
mhm,
also get taken care of. And those are also your responsibilities. So you can look kind of instead of having a narrow minded, that's something me personally I've done. I used to have one on ones with my team members all the time. And I would consistently ask myself, like, what am I like? What's happening? There's just something week to week that is just not clicking. And maybe if I would have said, hey, this is our long term plan, but this week let's just
Mhm.
focus on this, you
Mhm.
know, and just kind of in that
Mhm.
coaching style, really trying to figure out what works best for them.
Mhm.
Setting a single visible definition of done to reduce ambiguity to show what quality's like. So
Mhm.
if you work in a place where maybe they're in charge of certain projects or reports, or like, I'm going to just say this for any like hospitality or like, clinic stuff, maybe they're trying to get better at a certain skill, because a lot of those, like, it's just skills, right? They're really skill heavy. Maybe you're trying to
Mhm.
be more efficient at things. Really hammer in like, hey, this is where you're at. You're good. Maybe they don't need to like focus on that anymore, and they can spend time and energy on something else that you want them to improve on. And really
Mhm.
showing them like this is the expectation of what a done thing looks like. I think that that's a really good thing, because otherwise the person's like, I hope it's good,
Mhm.
and it just keeps going.
Well, and I think that's also a way you can incorporate some of that recognition and praise. Like, if someone has accomplished a certain goal, like, even if it's small, like, why not say, like, you know what? You have really shown improvement here. I know that you're just gonna continue to improve the more you do it, but, like, this is awesome, and I think it's gonna help you in all of this other stuff. So I think it's a way you can sprinkle in some of those positive recognitions as well.
Right. No, that's good. Closing a loop. So if an employee raises a blocker, it reports back by manager reports back on a date. Even if the answer is still working on it. So, if you feel like you're not going to meet a deadline, or maybe the deadline needs to be a
Mhm,
little bit sooner or later, whether you're the employee or the team member versus the manager, then be honest with yourself and
mhm,
just bring that up and build that relationship of trust, especially if you're early in the game and you don't have that relationship with your manager
mhm,
yet. If you know that you're struggling, I think that's an
mhm,
excellent time for you to be open about it, so that there can be a course correction, and
mhm.
you're not, this is my first project and I'm going to be late, or maybe I'm
Right.
trying to like get a promotion for something and they're just going to be like, oh, well, you just didn't hit the mark. Well, if you bring those
Mhm,
expectations or like those truths to what's going on in the get go,
mhm,
then we can course adjust. And any good
mhm.
manager should be able to identify, okay, well, this is how we do it.
Yeah.
And as a manager, just being sure that you're being honest with that and having that
Mhm.
opportunity to grow with them.
'Cause I think that's important too when if you are in an industry that's heavy, like, task oriented. And it's like, "Where are you on this? Where are you on this? Here's your
Mhm.
firm deadline." Sometimes, like, there's unexpected challenges that come up that aren't even in the employee's control. Like, you might be waiting on an outside person, or just there were unaccounted things, and that's gonna come up, and that's gonna impact that deadline. So being able to communicate that and your manager saying, "Thanks for sharing that update. Let's circle back to this at this date and see where you're at."
Mhm. And then spot some strengths in your workflow. Definitely let them know what they're doing good. We don't have to like harp on all the bad stuff, even if
Mhm.
it's a little good thing. Like, hey, I'm glad you took an extra break yesterday, or
Mhm, mhm,
whatever it might be. Like, or give them some positive reinforcement. Like, hey, you've done a really hard job this week. Take some extra
mhm,
time off. Head out early on Friday. Give them the
mhm.
incentive to be like, "Okay, cool, cool, cool. I'll come back and start fresh."
Yeah, even if it's just like you said, like, I can see that you're working really hard this week. I know that, we hit a few bumps in the road, but I can really see that you're pushing past those, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I like this one. A lot of people don't like these, but I like them. So, like a well being question, or maybe just like some sort of icebreaker, or some
Mhm,
sort of, anything. So, especially if it's like you're trying to build a relationship with like a new person, or maybe it's
mm,
someone you've had conflict with and you're just trying to kind of like ease it in so it's not so tense all the time. Like just having a well being question, what's going on? I hope you're doing well, like, is there anything that we could take off your plate? How's your workload? Or maybe even
mhm,
just like, it could be as dull as like, hey, like, what is something that you're grateful for? Or like, give me some
Mhm.
ideas is like, what is something that's going good in your life right now? You
Mhm.
know, whether it's hobbies or something they have to
Mhm.
look forward to
Yeah, no.
that creates that trust.
No, I think that's awesome too because, I mean, just like some of the data points we talked about, like, some of this ties into our overall well-being, and a lot of people struggle with that work-life balance. And so I think if you have your manager not just constantly talking to you about tasks and projects and deadlines and things like that, and being able to say, like, "Hey, Megan, when was the last time that you and your spouse went to watch a race? Because I know that you guys enjoy going to races.
Yes.
Like, when was the last time y'all did that?"
Mm,
Right? Being able to say, like, make sure that you're making time for yourself and your family because that's
right.
important.
It is important, especially when you're just trying, and that's what I'm saying, like, this one has a double-edged sword because I know there's a lot of business, like, hardy people, and they're like, I'm not trying to get close." And it's like, it's not that you're trying to get close, it's just that you're trying to stimulate them in a way that knows, like, this is what I'm working for, is for,
Mhm,
like, these
mhm,
fun things that I do outside of work that I can
mhm.
appreciate, and it just helps them stimulate, like, what the cause is for.
Yet you don't have to be their best friend,
You really
and,
don't.
like, asking personal questions does not mean that y'all are, like, besties now.
Okay,
It's just showing
yeah.
that you care.
I think we should give an example of, like, a bad question. So my example, I'm gonna give one and I'm gonna have Maddie give one. I'm gonna think real quick. How's your mom? When was the last time you talked to your mom? The last time you said something, you said that she was not having it. I don't like, that's too personal.
Well,
You
no,
don't need to know about my mom.
I think even just, like, tone, because
Yeah.
like, you can have, like, a good question, but if you present it with a terrible tone,
Like
it's
that.
gonna be re it's gonna be received in a terrible way.
Yeah. Like, how's your divorce? Like, that's just
Yeah.
like, be
How are you
careful
coping?
on what you're choosing, okay? Like,
How are you coping with that breakup?
yeah, I wouldn't, that
Is it gonna
stuff.
impact your ability to work?
Yeah, that stuff we can just not. A good question is, what would you rather do on a Saturday night? Like, I don't know. Don't
Mhm.
ask that one. That one might be depending on the situation.
You may not be ready for
Might
the
be a little
answer.
romantic. You're like, whoa, 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 whoa. So
Oh, here's a good one.
thank you,
Here's a
Maddie.
good one. Here's a good one. What's your coffee beverage of choice?
It's a good one. Personal, yet not a little deep.
Mhm,
It's not too deep. Thank you,
mhm,
Maddie. That was good. I talk about
mhm.
coffee at work all the time. I think
Well, and
that's my solid relationship.
I don't know if you ever you probably did, but, like, even when we worked together, I also really liked to, and we were in a space that, like, this was okay because we had, like, a little kitchenette and all of
Hmm.
that, but, like, I would have my coffee in a mug.
Hmm. Hmm. I did too.
I would bring it sometimes from home in a to-go mug, but then I would pour it into a mug, and I had different mugs
I prefer
that just
coffee in a mug, to
that
be
just brought
perfect.
me joy.
Yeah. Yeah.
They
Sometimes
were
you need
just
that.
fun mugs.
Yeah, I agree. Honestly, I
So,
really like this because it was kind of the throwback down memory lane. Thanks for
it
opening
was.
up my brain to past traumas.
It was. Yeah, I think it was for both of us. It was hard, I feel like, because we had to kind of sometimes there are certain topics that, like, as we're researching it, it does open up some wounds a little bit, and I have to reprocess that trauma. But I really did love this chat today.
Yeah, and I really want to stress, like, I empathize with managers, right? And I
Mhm.
empathize with team members. It's all sucks because it's all work, right? But I think for managers, like, once you take that position and you understand that you have to be in charge of more than yourself, that responsibility is on you for the success of your team, and
Mhm.
how you come about it and the direction you take. Understanding
Mhm.
the work personalities of your team members is super important, and just really
Mhm.
taking the time to kind of explore what that looks like with, like, professionals. There's
Mhm.
all sorts of resources out there that you can look into. There's coaches, and I really really would say, like, hey, you should really take a jab and see what that looks like to make it a healthier
No, I
workplace.
agree. I think that was something too that kind of resonated with me, especially when I was seeing some of those numbers about, like, managers being overloaded and stuff because I was a manager when all of this was happening.
Hmm.
And even though I strived to sort of shield the people that were under me from the pressures that I had, I know that I did not do a good job because I was I was surviving, I was not
You were
thriving.
upset.
I was upset, and it
Yeah.
was just like there was so much pressure, and I know that that trickled down, and I know that in someone else's story, they're probably saying that I was a crappy manager to them, and they're valid.
Mhm.
So, if
Samesies.
you're a former employee listening, I apologize for not being a good manager and engaged in a positive way with you.
Ditto. Ditto.
Please give me grace.
Well, thank you, Maddie. I appreciate you.
Yeah.
And I appreciate our listeners. Really stay safe, stay well out there. There's a lot going on. As per the
Mhm.
usual in Texas, we seem to somehow like to really set a precedence for things here.
We really do.
Yeah, and not in the things that I want to be known
I
about.
know. I
So
wish it was, like, good things.
I hope if you're out there, don't forget to take your coffee break, even if you're like, I need to chill out on the caffeine, which I
Mm.
don't agree with, but not
You
that
can
you
drink
can get the
you can
decaf
drink decaf or hot
tea.
tea that's decaffeinated
We're not gonna be biased. It's fine.
or water.
Whatever you need. So take care of yourself and be sure to connect with us. We'd love to hear from y'all. We do have our email, not a lonely coffee break at gmail.com. We want to know what you think, what would make your manager better.
Yeah, tell us. And then, of course, as always, make sure that you are connected with us on social media. You can find us on all the fun ones: Instagram, LinkedIn, Threads. You can also find us on Patreon, where we have been getting some exclusive content up for you guys. So make sure you head on over to Patreon to join our coffee break crew. And then, of course, you can always catch the show and new episodes every other Wednesday on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts. But yeah, thanks again, Meaghan, for a really great chat. And thanks for everyone who joined us today for Not a Lonely Coffee Break. Again, we are your hosts. I'm Maddie.
And I'm Meaghan.
Cheers,
Cheers,
queer.
queers.